Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Jim Ninsel, senior writer at the Tucson Weekly and host of AZ Illustrated Politics, our weekly analysis and commentary on local, state, and national affairs. Tonight, we'll examine Mayor Jonathan Rothschild's call for more annexation in his State of the City speech, and we'll also talk about background checks at gun shows in Tucson, catch up on the contentious politics of immigration reform, and discuss school closures in the Tucson Unified School District. But first, a look at today's top stories.
Unless Congress comes up with an alternative budget plan, automatic budget cuts are set to take effect next Friday. If that happens, the Defense Department's budget is taking many of the cuts, but other cuts could affect security closer to home. Andrea Kelly has that story.
If the sequester isn't avoided, Border Patrol agents are facing a cut in pay, like most other federal employees. Art Del Cueto is president of the Border Patrol union that represents agents in Arizona. He says cuts to Border Patrol could also change how much the agents work and how rural areas of the border are patrolled.
With cutting down the hours on the agents, with cutting down the pay, with facing furloughs, that does mean you'll have less agents working many of these areas, and at the same time, you'll have a lot less security.
Southern Arizona Congressman Ron Barber says budget cuts at the border aren't just about security. They also affect the ports of entry.
Further impact on those agents will mean it's even longer wait times for people who are coming here for legitimate business.
Barber cites a litany of people who could be directly impacted by the federal budget cuts, including people who benefit from federal funding, such as doctors who accept Medicare patients, teachers who have federal grants, and civilians who work on military bases. I'm Andrea Kelly, Arizona Public Media.
The possible cuts don't only affect federal jobs. Tucson Mayor Jonathan Rothschild says the police department is getting ready for a 5% cut in the narcotics unit due to the possible loss of federal grants.
Do they now move money from other programs so that they can continue this narcotics work? Do they say, no, we're just going to have to cut back an officer or two in narcotics to keep our other programs?
The mayor says recipients of Section 8 housing help could also end up missing rent payments. Rothschild does say many of those cuts won't be felt right away if sequestration goes into effect next Friday. And that's a look at tonight's headlines.
The United States top transportation official warned today that automatic government spending cuts would severely disrupt the nation's air travel system.
On the NewsHour tonight, Washington Post reporter Lisa Ryan walks us through the reality and the hype surrounding the timing and impact of sequestration as the countdown for a deal enters its final week.
Then Margaret Warner looks at today's summit between President Obama and Japanese Prime Minister Abe, where Japan's tensions with China were very much in the forefront.
Our week-long focus on guns after Newtown wraps up tonight with a report from Chicago on the public health crisis in the city in the wake of rising gun violence.
Mark Shields and David Brooks analyze the week's news.
And as a magistrate grants Oscar Pistorius bail, we talk to Charlene Hunter-Gault about how his arrest has focused attention on the unusually high rate of violence against women in South Africa.
That's all ahead on tonight's NewsHour.
Tonight on Arizona Week.
The Republican governor and Democratic lawmakers want more spending. Will Republicans in charge of the legislature agree?
I think that the differences, I won't say can be easily bridged, but they can be bridged.
Is there also a bridge to Medicaid expansion? The healthcare industry and Democrats are ready.
I went to the Arizona Medical Association, and it's the first time I ever saw a room full of doctors on board. And not only on board with something, but they are actively lobbying us to pass it.
Lawmakers prepare to build the state budget, and we preview it tonight on Arizona Week.
Tucson Mayor Jonathan Rothschild delivered his second State of the City speech earlier this week and made a call for more annexation. That's a goal many mayors have pursued without a lot of success. Joining me to talk about the state of the city and much more this evening, Tucson City Councilman Steve Kosachik, Tucson Tea Party founder Trent Humphreys, and former Tucson City Council aide Miguel Ortega. Thanks to all you guys for being here. Steve, you were at the State of the City speech. What did you think of the mayor's speech in general?
I thought he hit all the right notes. He made three key points in my opinion. Number one, focusing on the settlement agreement that we just reached with Rio Nuevo. That's going to open up a lot of doors once we get some money put into the convention center and get a notice to proceed on a hotel. That'll free us up for some cash for things like streetscapes and facade programs, that kind of thing, and some of the West Side projects that the voters originally approved. That was one big deal. Also, the fact that he did talk about the annexation. You know, this is something we've done 3 or 4 of those in the last 12 months, but it's something that the city of Tucson and generally Pima County has left a ton of money sitting on the table and going up to Phoenix. It's our tax money that winds up in Maricopa County because so much of Pima County is unincorporated, something like 63% of Pima County versus 95% of Maricopa. It'll give us a chance to keep some of the local dollars local. But I think the most important thing that he hit on was our relationship with the south of the border. This is a commercial opportunity that we ought to just grab that market, seize it, set up a logistics center here and catch that commerce before it gets up past us heading towards Phoenix. Those are 3 really important points. They all speak to jobs, jobs creation, and keeping our tax base local. So I thought he did a good job.
And that line about Rio Nuevo was one of the big applause lines, I think, of the thing. We saw
sure.
Really a big roar of applause on that.
Rightfully so, because this community has got Rio Nuevo fatigue, and we need to be able to put those 12 years behind us. Now, that is not to say anything is getting swept under the rug, because we still have legitimately an Attorney General FBI investigation that's still to be released. But what we just did with the settlement was identify who owns what and who owes what, and identify the parcels, who's going to develop them. Made a commitment to put some money into the TCC, recognizing that we're not going to build a new arena for $300 million, but we can put some fixes on the ADA issues with the existing structure, and capitalize on the market that we are. So I think that was an important point. The settlement is a big deal for this community. We've wasted too much taxpayer money, and let's let the Attorney General report come out, let the chips fall where they may, but that can happen in its own time frame. We can move this relationship forward while that's still coming.
And Trent, that call for annexation, as I said earlier, that's something a lot of mayors have called for in the past because it does bring a lot more revenue to Tucson, but there's always been a debate that then having to go serve all those new residents costs the city more money, so that maybe it evens out in the end. Your thoughts on number one, is annexation a good idea, and number two, is it likely to happen with the folks up in the foothills?
Well, it's a good idea for the funding of the city, but it may not be such a great idea for the people in the foothills, and they've vehemently said they do not want to be annexed by the city because of some of the way, as the city gets more trust, if the city grows and becomes more, has more of a track record of success, that may change. But right now, I mean, I've even been on the side of annexation, and I've talked to people, and they said there's under no circumstance do they want to be annexed by the city of Tucson. And the Vail thing's interesting too, because the city council went ahead and said that they symbolically said that they want Vail, you go ahead and annex. We're not going to do anything about it. And of course, the city doesn't want Vail because there's not a lot of revenue to be had from the people in Vail, and brings a lot more conservative voters also. So obviously, obviously the target is the foothills. If the city wants to annex, they want to annex in the foothills, and that's just, that hill's been trying to decline for years and years now, and I don't see that there's been any headway made in that area.
And I want to revisit that Vail question in a second, but Miguel, you've watched this from City Hall in the past as the city has tried to go up and talk with the folks up in the foothills and convince them to become part of the city, and it hasn't been an easy sales job.
I have, and it has been really difficult over the years, and I think we should applaud the mayor in working with the council to get 3 annexations done. When I was at Ward 3, the council office, it was really tough. I remember specifically there was one area, Campbell and River, I believe, and boy, that was very contentious. There was issues regarding the heart hospital and helicopter landings, and so the constituents there really advocated against annexing. But I think that the mayor is smart in trying to find ways to diversify revenue. I think the mayor is smart also in looking at ways to champion Tucson hometown. He got an applause there as well when he referenced Tucson and our need to protect our city. And I think that with Rio Nuevo, it's interesting. A great indication that we've made some changes is that now Rio Nuevo folks have a radio show. Okay, do you think that we could have had a radio show about 4 or 5 years ago?
We wouldn't have had a settlement 4 or 5 years ago, or 2 years ago, more appropriately, because the then Rio Nuevo board was being run by the state legislature. They didn't want a settlement. We've got some serious people on the board now who do want a settlement. Right. Circling back to the comment about the annexation, though, and the problems that Miguel witnessed when he was with the Ward 3 office, I voted against the annexation at River and Craycroft, and Jonathan spoke about this also, and that is how the county and the city need to start working together. The reason I voted against that was because we have created such a transit gridlock at that intersection, and what we simply did was we said we're gonna annex a targeted area on the southeast corner, do some private sector development, and actually increase the gridlock that we've already got down there before the county and the city learn how to play well together and address the transit issues. We've got to start working regionally on some of these things. And as to the Vail issue, that's an incorporation that the Vail is really the moving party on. For far too long, the city has held up their hands and said, we're not going to agree to anybody within the 6-mile limit to incorporate or to opt in for annexation in their own little quadrant, because we want to kind of keep this kind of the home rule thing that Miguel was speaking about to ourselves. We've been leaving money laying on the table, but we've got to do it strategically. And the Craycroft River annexation, in my opinion, that's the reason I voted against it, was a mistake, because we made a bad situation worse. So regional conversations about this are a necessity, and we got to quit this kind of stuff with the county all the time and start working together collaboratively.
And I think that's why there's less of this and there's more opportunities. Okay, I think that now we can look, each annexation is case-by-case situation. Every single proposed annexation will be different, and so there'll be pros and cons for voting for it or against it. But I think now we're in a better situation. I think there's a little bit more trust. I think there's a little bit more an interest to support businesses that are looking at Tucson, and is it a business-friendly place or not? So I think there's going to be more annexations.
Well, and you're right, but here's another point that we have to annexation doesn't necessarily just pay for itself. As we annexate, for instance, out into the foothills, if that were to happen, we have 675 firefighters back in 2009. We've got 612 now, 619, something like that. So we have about 50 fewer firefighters than we had 3 or 4 years ago. And if we're going to expand the capacity, we have to start looking about the infrastructure. We'll need more cops, we need more firefighters. That's a budget issue. Do the tax dollars we gain from it pay for that increased personnel? Because we can't just start annexing property and assume that we're going to be able to deliver the same level of services that we aren't delivering appropriately right now within the existing confines of the city.
Right. You have and then there's on top of that potholes to fill and parks to run and all those other added expenses. Trent, I just wanted to ask you very quickly about the Vail Incorporation. You think those folks are going to be able to create a town out there?
I think they want to. I think I think they look at places like Marana and Oro Valley and see their success there. And I think that and part of it is that how do we know? Because they never they knew that before now. They never had the opportunity because Tucson was going to swoop down there and destroy whatever they put together like they have in the past. And if Tucson's going to be more lenient about things like that, I think that's a good way to go. I think that the surrounding areas should have the opportunity to decide their own destiny without looking over their shoulder to guess what the big brother's going to do when they decide. So I think that's a positive step forward.
And Steve, also at the City Council meeting this week, the Council put the final approval on the resolution that you put forward that the gun sales at all gun sales on city property should undergo a background check. And I've spoken with the folks who do the gun show, and Lori McMahon, the Roadrunner gun show at the Tucson Convention Center. She says she's just going to move it to a private place to do these gun shows. And of course, that's the criticism, but this hasn't really accomplished very much.
Well, you don't know what you don't know. It's not our job to make the sale of guns on a person-to-person basis more convenient. It's to protect the safety of the public. In 2011, 15 days after the Gabby Gifford shooting, they held a sting operation up in Phoenix at one of the Roadrunner gun shows. Undercover cops went in and were buying weapons on a person-to-person transfer basis. Even when they said to the person who was selling the gun, I might not be able to pass a background check, the sale went through. So we know we have a reasonable reason to believe that some of the sales are going to people who would not legitimately pass a background check. You know, we're not trying to shut down gun shows. What we're trying to do is adopt some common sense gun laws. And you know, the highest percent, 85% of NRA members, over 90% of gun owners in general, say, you know what, if somebody's doing a person-to-person sale, they probably ought to know something about the criminal or psychological background of the person who's buying the gun and walking away. So all we're saying is right now, if you're a federally licensed dealer doing a gun show in the TCC, you already have to do these. All we said was everybody in the building does them now, so that we make sure that the sales are being made to people who are legitimately entitled to purchase a firearm. That to me is just intuitive and common sense, and it's really an issue about the safety of the public. And so I'm proud of the council for making that move. I wish the state legislature would get on board and do it. I mean, it's so difficult to have a rational, calm conversation about this. I saw just before I came over here that in the state of Missouri right now, they just dropped a bill that said if anybody even proposes gun control legislation, it's going to be a Class 4 felony in the state of Missouri. Now, this is the same state that gave us the women can control their own reproductive systems if they're being raped, right?
So I guess that would be a difficult bill to repeal should it actually pass.
I guess it would. It would be. I'm surprised that Arizona didn't beat him to the punch on it, quite frankly. But you know, this has been a tough issue. I'm glad that we're leading on this thing. And again, if Lori McMahon wants to take her gun show out into the county, I would hope the county jumps on board with us and follows suit, so they can't just move out to the county fairground.
And Trent, your thoughts on council's action and also just on background checks in general, the idea of the universal background check seems to be gaining some traction on the national level.
Well, you know, I disagree with Councilman Glassman in this area.
Glassman?
I'm sorry, it's hard to tell the difference nowadays. But what it comes down to is that you know, we spend so much time on issues that don't really have anything to do with governing the city. Now, Steve, you didn't run on gun control issues. You didn't bring those up until what, 6 months ago, when you started championing those. What happened to you between the time you ran for office as a crusader for lowering tax dollars and doing things to you became this champion for gun control?
Why is it offensive to you that somebody ought to be able to pass a background check, Trent? Why is it just a knee-jerk that people can't even have a rational conversation about making sure that if I hand you a wad of cash and I walk off with your gun, that you know I don't have felonies in my background? That is a public safety issue, and I did run on public safety.
Well, there are different ways to it. Now, there are people that have
Is that
legitimate
not a public
concerns.
safety
There are
issue?
people that have legitimate concerns that when you do these background checks, how are they going to be conducted? Are they become a de facto registration place?
See, you're falling into this whole slippery slope thing, and now we're going to be brown shirts and jackboots at the door.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying. What are the things you're going to do? Because right now you're saying people can't do it. You're making it legal. If you're going to make this universal background check happen, what are the details? Because we need those details up front. With what we saw from Obamacare, we need the details first, and then we'll talk about if it's a good idea or not.
Well, I think Trent. I recognize your comment on calling Councilmember Kozachek Councilmember Glassman, but I think that the Republican Party right now has the identity crisis. We need more moderate Republicans, reasonable Republicans. You know, in November there was absolutely a lightning of reason. The Latino vote, was absolutely heard. The only problem is that Arizona has yet to hear the thunder of reason. And when you say things like that, it's just, it's mind-boggling. The Republican right, the extreme Republicans are just absolutely making the moderate Republicans just quiet, and it's terrible. When you have, and people say that they have a problem with the analogy of a car and regulating a car. But even public safety officers recognize cars as lethal weapons, and they need to be regulated. What is the big problem about making sure?
I'm saying, give us the details.
What is the problem with making sure that
we regulate? Not the emotional appeal, not the things. Give us the actual details of how it's going to work.
Federally licensed dealers already go through the checks. Period. All we're saying is if you are doing a person-to-person sale on city property, you do the same thing. That's pretty simple. Now, let me circle back, because you have been pretty public on your Facebook page about criticizing me about positions that I have or haven't taken. And so let's talk about this a second, Trent, because here you say Steve has said his main reason for hating the Republican Party is because of the abortion issue. First of all, I never said I hated the Republican Party. You have just lost your cookies since I changed parties. My point was that the Republican Party has gone so far to the right, and you're a good example of it right now. Then you said he wants to make sure that babies are killed, and he needs to own this. Trent, are you really serious that you're going on public forums and saying this crap. He says, in order to prove just how much in tune he is with the local community, Steve K will be having an abortion next Tuesday. You put that tripe out publicly, and then your little buddies say, well, at least he's consistent. He doesn't believe in carrying. And you say, ouch. And then Phyllis gets on, well, right after that, he'll be marrying his gay lover in a private ceremony.
All right.
You have just insulted blacks and gays and women
in
2 cents, in 2 pages
I didn't
of
say
this
that.
stuff.
First of all, Steve,
this is your Facebook
Steve,
page,
let
and you
me,
did
let me
say
say
it.
something.
So,
Steve, let me say, are you that insecure? Are you that insecure
Let me
about what
finish,
people
Trent.
think about you?
Now,
Did you track them on Facebook?
No, I don't even have a Facebook.
Well, somebody does.
Yeah, you.
Steve, are you that? Really?
Let me share with
Jim,
you.
if I could just say, guys, you know, the problem is that in Arizona, reasonable, moderate Republicans want to focus on economic development. They want to focus on our downtown. They want to focus on things that matter to the majority of folks. But when we have extreme rhetoric, okay, and we don't focus and don't catch up with the rest of the nation, this is the kind of thing we end up with, and folks are tired.
Let me share with you that this Republican Party in this state has gone so far to the right that when a person like me, who has been pushing public safety, who has been trying to get a settlement with Rio Nuevo, check 2 boxes, and we have finally done that, who has been pushing for economic development in the downtown core and throughout this community, who has been pushing for the reasonable tax incentives to generate jobs and tax in this city, and then we get this legislature who continues to pass these offensive immigration laws that we haven't quite gotten to yet. We have this issue that you can't get your arms off of about women's reproductive rights. That has not been something I've been leading on. And we completely lose the whole issue about public funding of public education out of this legislature. Those were enough, but then I did a particularly benign event, held a gun buyback, and this is the kind of crap that you guys go out on public Facebook and start blasting me about, and then an equally benign event about person-to-person sales, and all of a sudden I'm a Second Amendment bigot and Hitler and a Nazi, and we can't even have this conversation in this community. And Miguel is right. When we get to the point in this state where people can have a rational conversation about reasonable gun control in a state that ought to be the epicenter of that conversation, then you can start criticizing me about jumping parties. But that stuff is childish. It makes you look like an intellectual infant, and quite frankly, you ought to be embarrassed by that stuff, not posting it.
Well, I will say that I'm afraid some of my Facebook posts are probably fairly infantile too. So, but let me switch topics over to the incident with TPD that happened this week, where officers pulled over a man who was driving with some children in his car, and they thought that he might be.
There was no trunk.
It was a hatchback area of the car, and they were concerned that he might be in this country illegally. They called the Border Patrol. It led to the Border Patrol taking the man into custody, and then there was an immigration activist there who tried to stop the Border Patrol, ended up getting pepper sprayed and taken into custody as well. And Steve, in terms, and this of course gets back to SB 1070 and what the law enforcement is supposed to do when they come across somebody they suspect is in the country illegally, did TPD act in the appropriate manner in this particular case?
TPD followed the law. And Chief Villaseñor was very upfront when SB 1070 was passed, and that's why I supported him and opposed 1070, was that this is the kind of escalation of what ought to have been just a simple traffic violation. In fact, I've got the chief's letter here, and he says, our actions concerning Mr. Huerta Mesa were completely in line with the provisions in effect since the Supreme Court decision regarding 1070. It's exactly situations like this we predicted would occur once the law was allowed to stand. The 1070 did nothing to address border security, and all it's done is effectively ruin or taint our relationship with the Latino community that we had been doing a good job in building relationship within this community. And that's one of the it's a perfect poster child example of the flaws of the law.
Miguel, your thoughts about what happened here?
Well, you know, even if the letter of the law was followed, and I recognize Chief Villaseñor's position, because he's being forced to do something that, quite frankly, he has been very good about expressing nationwide that he has a problem with. The real challenge here locally is that while Mayor Rothschild is trying to build a relationship with Mexico to work on economic development and have Mexican visitors come spend money here, we have a community that's outraged with what just happened. And rightfully so. We are not done in Arizona. We have to continue to work on our image. We have to continue to work on confronting bad laws passed by bad politicians in Phoenix so that we can catch up with the rest of the nation. That's kind of my theme right now, catching up with the rest of the nation.
And Trent, your thoughts on what happened here?
Well, look, he didn't get arrested because of the kids in the back seat. He got arrested because he was driving on a suspended license. If anyone here, well, you don't drive, but if anyone here drives with a suspended license and the cops pull you over, they're taking you downtown in handcuffs. That's what's going to happen to you. So the fact is that he didn't get pulled over because he was Hispanic. He didn't get arrested because of the people in the back seat. He got arrested because he was driving on a suspended license. And so that's the first thing that happened. So that he was detained not because he was an illegal immigrant, but because he was driving on a suspended license. So let's be clear about that. And once he was arrested, I would hope that when we arrest people, that we check to see who they are, where they come from, and what's going on. So yeah, they were going to find out, law or not, if he was an illegal immigrant. Now that's the question. And once they know he's an illegal immigrant, once they know who he is and what he's doing here, why is it a stretch to contact Border and let them decide? According to federal law.
The reason is because a cousin of mine that looks like me, who may have issues regarding a suspended license, shouldn't be then targeted because of the color of his skin.
That's not what happened, though.
What he was arrested. First, the TPD was called, and then TPD called Border Patrol. That's the issue that folks still have a problem with here.
They were required
it wasn't just
by
a simple
law to contact Border Patrol.
But, and then once they contacted Border Patrol, it was the laws of the state and the laws of the nation. And that's the thing about it. We can't have a place in this country where the law is not applied equally to everybody, depending on where they come from.
We can't have a place in this nation that continues to pass laws like SB 1070 in Arizona.
The 1070, he's not getting deported because of 1070. He's getting deported because there was a national law.
And I think that's where we come to whether or not we're going to deal with the people who are in this country illegally through a comprehensive immigration reform package. And Senator McCain certainly got chewed up a little bit at a town hall on this very issue because he and Jeff Flake are pushing that kind of law. And Trent, your thoughts on where that plan is? Do you think there'll be comprehensive immigration? And we only have a minute left, unfortunately.
I think where we come down to it is that I think there are a lot of people that just don't trust, even if the law is passed and it's beautiful and it's golden and everybody agrees on it, people just don't believe that it will be enforced at the executive level, because we have a history of not enforcing certain laws and other laws, and that has to stop. If the laws are wrong, we need to change them, make the laws that we can enforce. But the selective enforcement of laws, that just leads to tyranny and bad things.
And about 30 seconds left, Miguel, but do you think we'll actually see the comprehensive immigration reform that you're looking for passed through Congress this year?
Well, what we need is senators that are consistent, and unfortunately right now, Senator McCain has not been very consistent. On the one hand, he works with Kennedy on the comprehensive immigration reform, and then on the other hand, he chooses Sarah Palin as a running mate. On the other hand, he chooses to show compassion, and he's talking about compassion. Yeah. Then he says, let's get some drones and deal with the border issue.
Okay, and then we are going to have to leave it there. Thank you guys for being here. But before we go, on behalf of our panel on AZPM, we'd like to share our condolences following the passing of longtime local businesswoman and philanthropist Dorothy Finley this week. She made many wonderful contributions to our community and will be missed by her family and many friends. We'll be right back with some closing thoughts.